Hello, my name is Zeni. I teach at Immaculate Conception Seminary in New Jersey, and the focus of my research has been professional lay ministers. This group, called by the bishops lay ecclesial ministers, has developed in our churches in the past 40 years. Their emergence has been a grassroots phenomenon. Pastors identified the needs in their communities and acted to meet them by hiring people into various roles, often newly evolved, to provide the needed leadership. There's been great growth in the area of lay ecclesial ministry in recent years. Two major studies, 92 and 97, done by Monsignor Phil Mernian, show that there was a 35% increase in the number of lay ecclesial ministers. Now, this is an estimate because there's no definition of the lay ecclesial minister. No firm figures, therefore, are really available. However, his studies show that the ratio of lay ecclesial ministers per parish in 92 was 1.08, in 97, 1.48, and preliminary findings in a study underway right now is that there are 2.3 working in parishes. By contrast, in the period 92 to 97, there was a 12% decline in the number of priests. A 2000 study for the bishops show that there were 27,015 priests in parish ministry, 30,000 lay ministers. When we look at this from a human resource perspective, Mernian's comments are instructive. After his first study, he said, "The emergence of lay ministry has had a sharply local quality, with all the advantages and disadvantages that this brings. Establishing positions, their responsibilities and requirements, has been largely determined by pastors. Very few dioceses exercise much responsibility, to say nothing of authority, for determining just what ministry positions there will be, or who and with what qualifications will occupy these positions. This has many implications, especially when one considers that the average number of laypersons on the staff 7 years ago was 1.48, and that preparation for priesthood did not and does not include training in things like hiring and supervising staff." How do pastors hire lay ecclesial ministers? The most common way is to recruit through and among people they know, whose work they've seen or they've heard about through a colleague. 80% of pastors say this is what they do. And more than 50% of new lay ecclesial ministers were parishioners or persons already volunteering in ministry when they began. Now, it's worth noting, pastors are primarily interested in relational skills, less so in degrees. One consequence of this is that only 40% of lay ecclesial ministers hold a higher degree, whereas with vowed religious, the number is double that. There are two resources that pastors may use when they are hiring. NACPA, the National Association for Church Personnel Administrators, has guidelines and resources available, and in some dioceses there are human resource officers and sometimes manuals that can assist in hiring. However, pastors need not use these resources. The issue of recruitment is a complex one. There was a marketing study done with young adults at Dominican high schools and colleges, and it found that most had no idea that lay ministry is a potential path for one's life work. Furthermore, diocesan vocations offices focus almost entirely on priesthood and vowed religious life. And among pastors, only 5% reported advertising for positions in a diocesan or a national newspaper. In the church today, issues of accountability are at the forefront of our attention, and yet overall the systems in the church lack structures and mechanisms for evaluation of priests or lay people. Career mobility is important for lay ministers, and it depends largely on their own initiative. There has been a fair amount of mobility, and yet there's no pattern of identifying those with great potential and giving them ministry roles which would expand their experience as a leader, preparing them for the future. A sense that human resources need to be developed and sustained. There are advantages to what I have described. The patterns have grown out of the experience of communities of faith. They have helped to call forth many gifted lay ecclesial ministers and to foster much development in ministry. The question is whether the church's institution, the church with a bureaucratic dimension, is best served by these practices as they have evolved thus far.